Be talking about the Emberlit Fire Ant today. Let's do this. Alright guys, well here you go. This is the case that the Emberlit Fire Ant comes in. At first glance, I'm not really impressed with the case. It just kind of looks and feels a little cheap. But, you know, kind of just having it around with me for a while, I'm starting to kind of grow on it a little bit, but I just really wish they would have, which I'm going to end up doing myself, is either a leather case or a Cordura case, just something a little more sturdy. I mean, this is outdoors. You know, let's make an outdoors worthy case, you know what I mean? But then again, also, what really matters ultimately is what's inside the case. So, let's give it a shot and see how it goes. Before I even start a wood fire in this, I want to show you guys a couple of the options that it has. Alright, once you get it out of the pack, on the inside you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. You've got your bottom plate, and you've got this little plate. This little plate is good for live fire, hexamine, the fuel gel, solid fuel SBIT, you know, just about any type of solid fuel you want to use. The coined phrase for this plate is the solid fuel plate. I'll show you how that goes in real quick. I have put this stove together a few times already, just because, you know what, when you like stoves like I do, you have to play with them a little bit. So that's what we do. So let's go ahead, let's just put this plate in here. I'm not going to so much worry about putting that bottom plate in. I'm going to put it in this way. I don't think it really matters which direction you put it in, honestly, but I'm just going to do it like so. So, like the original Emberlit stove, you put on your panel here, and you just give it a little bit of a tweak. It just pops right in there. Not bad. I could use the bottom, you know, to give it a little bit more rigidity, a little more stability, but just to show you guys that, it's really not all that bad. I can throw that bottom plate in fairly quick. One thing about this plate I've got to give them some credit for is when you put it in, it's solid. I mean, it is a solid plate, which is really good. And it doesn't matter what side you put in for the feed plate, because, you know, it all needs to have a little bit of a tweak to it while you do it. Now, in the long run, at first I was worried about Emberlit stoves because of that tweak, but I have the original Emberlit, and it just, I got that plastic on there. I'll talk about that plastic here in just a minute. It's just a decent little stove. It really is. The original Emberlit that I have is good. It's a solid stove. You know, you don't need to worry about it falling apart on you. So, at any rate, let's go ahead and pop this out. And I'm going to show you two things that agitated me just a little bit. Okay, one is for the Trangia burner. Okay, here's my Trangia burner. When you go to put this in, okay, it is a very snug fit. Now, since it's a snug fit, remember we talked about having to use that little bit of a tweak. I found it best to put the stove down like this, but you still have to tweak it in here, alright? I've practiced this a couple times, so I've gotten fairly good at it, but the very first time I did it, I thought it was a little difficult, just because you already have 3 lips, okay, of the Trangia in here, and you have to position this and move this around in order to make this go in there. You know what? It still goes in there, and once again, it's still really solid. Now, here's a concern that I do have. Since I use my Trangia a lot, I don't need to take that off, I guess. I can't use my simmer ring, my simmer lid, which I actually do use that quite a bit. So those are just a couple of my only concerns. Other than that, I have no problems with this stove. Something tedious is the plastic that it comes wrapped in. Every one of these plates has plastic on it, a nice thin film, protects the stove. but the lettering has been done with the plastic on there. So when you go to peel the plastic off, you have to scrape the plastic off of that. Not a big deal, just not a quick open. So you know, and of course, if it's on there, I'm gonna burn it. It's gonna burn off anyway. I'm a little picky and weird like that, I guess, which is all right. So, since this is the first burn video for this, let's get burning on it, shall we? I've got some weeds here that I'd found. I'm gonna stick it down in there nice and tight. Leave a little gap here. I'm gonna use a lighter to start it. And I'm gonna tell you something. I've been watching a lot of videos. You know, I watch a lot of videos on stoves because I like them. And 9 times out of 10, I see somebody using a lighter. There's a good size comparison for you to a full-size Bic. And people say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using my lighter. You know, the grass is wet or this." Don't apologize for using a lighter. It is convenient. It is easy. They're reliable. They're waterproof. I mean, they can get wet. You can blow them out. They work. These right here are great to have. They're great to have to practice with, to practice skill sets with. But even people a long time ago, I'm talking like Kephart, Nessmuck, if they would have had a lighter, they would have used it. Okay? So, people, I'm apologizing for using a lighter. They're convenient, they're easy. Do I always use a lighter? No. But when I do, am I going to apologize it? No. Apologize for it? No. So, I'm not going to apologize for making things simple for myself. That would be silly. Stick some of these dry sticks right up here on the top, because this will start burning here in just a moment. It's got nice heat down inside of there. Well, I went ahead and got the some bigger sticks put in there. Figured you didn't want to sit there and watch me blowing on fire, did you? Let those bad boys catch a little bit. Made some other sticks here as well, a little bit drier, just to kind of wedge in there and get it going really well. I'm gonna stick this stick right in here. Now you see this little hole right here? Right there? It's a pretty good idea, because what this is going to allow me to put my stick in here, or in fact I could even put a larger one in there, not at this point of the fire, but a larger one in there, and it would still allow air to be pulled in through this bottom hole. It's a pretty good idea. You can hear that fire going. So I'm just going to get this guy in there just to kind of let him get burning a little bit. Throw another one of his big brothers in here. Get that fire nice and hot, and we'll be back once it's burned down just a little bit. I think the wind's really helping me out a lot today, and not only that, but this little stove is burning quite hot. I'm gonna give this stove some serious credit. It is burning really hot. For this size, this is pretty impressive. The wind is carrying the heat that direction, so I'm going to put a little bit of a wind block over here. Good thing about being in my yard. There we go. I was actually planning on going out in the woods today, but then I was reminded that my little guys have a dental appointment today. So I'm just burning up here, which is fine. I don't mind, it's a stove and I get to play with it, so I'm super stoked about that. Alright, well, I'm going to push that down a little bit. Good. Of course, I'll be making one of my favorite meals. Noodles. I've got some chow mein noodles here that I'm going to be using. Get them out of my bag and I'll be right back. Alright guys, well I'm back. Apologies, not only did I need to get my noodles out, but I also had to go and put one of my dogs back in the house. I have a cat who is very smart and she knows how to open the door. So I did not latch that door and she let the dog out. I'm going to tell you guys something right now that I'm noticing. I am feeding this stove pretty quick. This stove is burning pretty, I'm going to put a piece of bark in here, pretty well. You can see the size of this stick. You know, and it's already burned into coals. So, okay, so let's get these noodles on, shall we? Got some of my favorite noodles here. Some chow mein noodles. I like them for a couple reasons. One, they're extremely affordable. Two, they're very filling. And three, they fit in like all my pots that I have. So, let's get some water here. And I am still using my heavy cover canteen. I really like it a lot. It's probably enough water there. Let's see what kind of coverage we get on this bad boy, shall we? I'm using the MSR Seagull pot, the stowaway pot. This is the, I believe, 750 milliliter pot. It's just a little guy. Kind of give you a little bit of a size comparison here. It does fit on top of the stove really well. Looks like the sun is coming in. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. So far I'm pretty happy with this little stove. You know, like I had said, it's actually surprising me at how hot it's getting. The only other stove that has shocked me at how hot it gets, which, because of the size comparison, this stove is not getting that hot, which would be the Firebox Gen 2. That stove is seriously a hot stove. So I'm just kind of trying to fill this feed port up here to see how well it keeps up because of this bottom hole there to help oxygenate this fire. I've got pretty good faith in this little guy. Got fire. The way the pot stand is made at the top is actually allowing for some good ventilation, good exhaust, not to the point where it's exhausting out the flame. Pretty impressive. The holes seem to be good, adequate size on the base to pull in the nice air. And as you can see here, I'm already going to be pushing in on this wood that I just put in here. So that's good. It's working well. Let's move here to the side a little bit. Yeah. This little fire ant is definitely eating the fire. Or the wood, not the fire. It's creating fire. But it is definitely destroying this wood that I'm putting in there. It is impressive for a stove this size. I'm looking around the edges right now. Since this is a stainless steel stove, I don't really see any flexing. And I think that a lot of that is in part because of the way the side plates are made here, because they're actually beveled out. I think that these allow for one support. They help give this stove its very rigid feel to it. I also think that it helps with the expansion once it gets really, really hot. I was just looking here. Some plastic I didn't get off all the way. Looks like it just burned off. These holes here at the base, I'm not even having to clean them out. It looks like it's burning the wood to a really nice fine dust. And it's got a nice steady fire on the inside. Water is definitely getting ready. That's pretty quick. Yep, it's actually keeping the holes somewhat clear from pulling in the air, so that's kind of cool. See how it's really just taking all this wood. Now, for a small stove like this, I honestly would have thought that I would have a little bit more of a hard time using such big wood. But I think that the key to this really is this hole underneath here. I really do. Because I can see right here through this hole, and there's some serious red cherry coals in there, which are really nice. And I can see that in a path right underneath here, the wood is glowing red. So this hole's doing its job for sure. And it's doing it up underneath the wood, which is really nice because it's allowing to pull the oxygen through the wood. It's coming through here because this is all actually lifted at a slight angle. It's pretty decent. The fact that it's burning the wood really well makes up a little bit for the fact that the trangia is kind of cumbersome to get in. This is just a first burn though. I mean, it definitely takes a lot for me to give this stove to say if it's something I would carry with me all the time. So right now I'm really fairly impressed with how hot it is actually maintaining. I really am. I would put this in a comparison at first with the look and slightly of the shape with the Vargo hexagon stove. My concern and my problem with the Vargo hexagon stove was I was constantly feeding it and I wasn't maintaining this type of a heat. So this definitely beats the Vargo out of the water, no problem. Or shall I say beats the Vargo out of the coals, no problem. I'm gonna say hands down actually. So if you guys have been thinking about a Vargo stove, this is definitely something that you might want to be thinking about instead. You know, I know I'm fiddling around with it a lot. I'm just trying to see if I see any problems with it, if I see anything that maybe I might spot that somebody else who's looking for a stove, a reliable stove, may have an issue with. And it's a pretty decent little stove. I'm not really seeing any issues with it at all. I forgot to add my dehydrated vegetables here to my noodles, which is fine because once I'm done getting these noodles ready, once they come up to a little bit better of a boil, I'm going to let them sit because I've got to make some tea. I don't think that I enjoy my noodles as much if I don't have a cup of tea. And I really do enjoy noodles. You know, it's been quite a while since I've used this little MSR pot. I have two main pots that I really like. First of all, I really like my heavy cover canteen kit. That is probably my #1 go-to kit that I have now. I like how lightweight it is. I just like the way it feels. And my other kit is always going to be my 2-pot kit, which is my Heli Context mess kit, which is my favorite pot kit that I actually have. This little pot here is really well, especially for somebody who wants to pack it away and stuff it full of all your maybe dried foods that you're bringing with you if you're doing a nice hike or maybe a day hike. I wouldn't really suggest this for a multi-day hike, maybe a little bit bigger pot, but you know, it's a nice little pot. It fits on top of this stove really, really well. I'm really liking that. Sometimes you get pots that don't get the good heat coverage underneath because they're maybe a little bit too big for the stove. But I don't know, I don't think really you're gonna run into an issue with that with this stove. These little legs here that come off on either side actually really give it some good stability. And I like that with this stove, it's getting rid of the trivets that you have with the full-size Emberlit, or shall we say maybe the original Emberlit. So, now one thing I do know that the trivets on the original Emberlit stove really help keep that stove stable. There is a little bit of warpage in that Emberlit stove, and with that, the trivets really help straighten it out and get rid of any of the warpage that it may have been caused from the heat. Now, I can't tell you if there's any warpage on this stove yet. It took about a good 6 or 7 burns before I could even notice that with the original Emberlit. So I'll definitely keep everybody posted. For those guys who are in our Facebook group, Stoveaholics, I'll definitely be feeding you full of information on that, and you know, I may revisit the stove, or I may keep using the stove on and off. You know, I like stoves. I have lots of stoves, so when a stove impresses me, I do continue to use it a lot. That is how I am. Like I said, point in case, the Vargo hexagon stove, I wasn't impressed with it. I gave it away because it was not impressive to me. At least not impressive enough for me to want to hold on to. Now that's my opinion, okay guys? That's completely my opinion. There may be other people out there that swear by that stove. Look at them noodles. Oh man, they're good to go. Okay, I got some of the seasoning here. What I do is I buy the big chow mein noodle packs. They have these little flavor kits in them, and I just love them. I do. I think they're just great tasting. So, especially for something as lightweight as a dehydrated noodle or a dried noodle. Oh man, they're just good. You know, I mean, look at all that food. Look at all these noodles here, and you saw how small and tight that pack was. Yes, that is looking good. I'm going to cover that back up, and I'm going to set that right over here. And I'm going to, since I got the top off, drop a couple pieces of wood inside of there. Not that it really needs it, but hey, it's fun to feed a stove. That's why a lot of us have lots of stoves, because they're fun to feed. And I'm going to fill up my canteen cup here from Heavy Cover. The reason why I say from Heavy Cover is because the canteen cup from Heavy Cover is titanium. Okay? I don't want you guys to get it confused with the original stainless steel, which they are the same size, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just I want to put out the difference that this is the titanium. And I'm going to visit on something a little bit while I'm just kind of looking to see how well this canteen cup fits on here, and it does fit really good. One thing you'll know about a canteen cup is it's got that peanut shape on the bottom, so it can be difficult to fit on stoves. There's no problem with the way it's fitting on there. Now that rocking is my own fault here. I should have put something underneath the little edge of the stove right here. I'm not exactly on sturdy, flat ground. There we go. Yeah, see that? It's very solid. Now, somebody had commented before, I believe it was probably in one of my videos or a picture on Instagram or maybe in Stoveaholics, but they had asked, you know, how silly I was to have a titanium ultra lightweight kit, but then maybe have a stainless steel stove or a heavy stove. And I'm going to tell you, like I had commented on before, I like this and I like these. I use what I like. I could honestly care less about the weight. Even though this thing does weigh in at 6.5 ounces, that's fairly light. I really don't care so much about the weight. What I can do is, if I can lighten this up here, I can go heavier here, or I can lighten this up here, go light here, and go heavier somewhere else in my pack. It totally determines on what I'm doing, where I'm going, but when it comes to stove kits, I'm going to use what I like, you know? And I think that this canteen cup and kit that I have is very well made. It has become one of my favorites, and I'm going to keep on using it. You know, so that's how I sit on that. I know a lot of people like the stainless steel. I used stainless steel for a very long time. I really liked it a lot, and you know, I feel that I kind of upgraded a little bit into this. Okay, my rant is over. Back to the stove. It's being very impressive. It's just being a silent work beast. I think that if you want to really see how well a stove works is by definitely trying out numerous pots that you may have that are different sized, because that really kind of gives you a good feel for it. I have here, you know, a very fairly large pot which this did well on, and then I have a very oddly shaped pot which this did on it really well on. So, you know, I'm going to say for the pots, it's definitely past my expectation. I'm going to say for the weight, that's really good. 6.5 ounces is amazing. It's 3 inches by 5 inches. I'm going to say that for the heat, it did impress me. I just do not like the that little twist, you know, that you have to do. I worry that in time it'll cause maybe some warpage, but we'll have to see what happens then. I'm not impressed with the Trangia hookup. I wish it was fairly easy, but this is the way they make their stove, so it's just kind of something you have to deal with. Every stove that you're going to find out there in the market, okay, is going to have one of these just little things that you may or may not like about it. It just depends on how much is that going to bother you, okay? So I think that this little feed port here, and the fact that this is really large and I can seriously stick some big wood in it. In fact, let's just go ahead and stick some big wood in it now. I can stick some big wood in it. That makes up for my issues with the Trangia. It really does. I like these pot stands, how they're incorporated in with the actual shape of the stove. That's not anything major or big to a lot of people, but I'm going to use my knife here to point. These are really well thought out, okay? Because they allow the stove to exhaust, but yet still let this fire be oxygenated so that the fire itself isn't stalling out with just an overabundance of smoke. That's a pretty good idea, I think. See how well my tea is going. It's only been on just a couple minutes, so. Okay, it's a little windy, of course, but this wind is really feeding this fire. As you can see, I scooted this in. Again, it is destroying this log. I'm going to move this camera down a little bit so you guys can really kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm going to move this over here. Get it down here. I don't want to change frames. Okay. You see it right there. You see how it's keeping this wood up at an angle. It's really helping this burn. I'm impressed with that. I know it's something small, but I am impressed with it. I did have a little bit of bowing right here, just a hair, when I had a really hot fire in there, and it has gone away. So I think that's in part with the way that this is molded here, how it comes out just a hair. And I'm fortunate I can get my hand close to it without being burned because the wind is pushing the heat that way. I can still feel some of the heat from the embers, but And those are some hot embers, hence the term Emberlit and Fire Ant. That's just cool, huh? Well, I'm done cooking all my food. I'm just kind of throwing a bunch of different woods in there, a bunch of different debris, just to really kind of see how well this little stove is going to do it. You know, it's a fire, so it's going to burn, but it's really nice and compact, so it's definitely doing a good job. See some of the wood I've thrown in there and some of the other debris. It's kicking butt. It's taking some names down, you know. Flavor my tea the way I like it. Oh yeah. Alright guys, well, per tradition, here goes the first bite rule. You gotta do it. You make the food, you gotta do it. Give me a minute. These are long noodles. Good as always. Alright guys, well, I'm going to continue feeding this Emberlit with some more sticks because I'm just going to run it through the paces. Really appreciate really appreciate you guys all coming along with me, taking a look at this stove. Please like, comment, share, subscribe as always. I appreciate that. And we'll see you guys hopefully next time out in the woods. Take care.